This is a very eager bunch of individuals. You're all on time and got your seats ready to get going. So thanks very much for attending tonight. My name's James Ski. I'm the founder of Sales Confidence. Sales Confidence is essentially a community for salespeople and sales leaders, and our mission is to help you each stage of your career with your mindset, well-being, and performance. So we really believe in kind of sustainable performance and success. And the cool thing is, you're at the most exciting stage of your career because you're right at the beginning, which is the most fun. And believe me, I do a lot of events for, I've been doing this for 5 years, have a lot of interactions with most of your bosses. They're no way as entertaining as you guys. So, it's much more fun to hang out with a room of new salespeople and SDRs. My wonderful co-host is Elaine Tyler, who is the CEO and founder of Venatrix. Wow. I didn't get a clap. Yeah. Thank you. Elaine was the inspiration for the SDR movement, as I like to call it, as she's responsible and her team for many of the successful placements at hundreds of SaaS companies across the UK. So just to point out, obviously, if you're have a friend at uni or anyone that's looking for a role, make sure you introduce to Elaine and the team. And likewise, if you're hiring SDRs, make sure you speak to Elaine and the team. So I'm just going to give a bit of a rundown of the event, give you a bit of a backstory, not too long, and then start introducing our speakers. I do just want to make a point. Many of us haven't been out of our houses to network for some time. For some of you, it's your first time being in a professional networking environment. It's not easy to get up here and talk to an audience of over 100 people. So, please do pay attention. Make sure your phone's off. Don't talk while people are up here on stage. Just be respectful to the speakers. They put a lot of effort in terms of preparation and providing the content that we've got tonight. Just to say, they get 7 minutes. And the reason that is it's long enough for them to inspire you and share some tactics and golden nuggets of strategies and how they're successful, but it's not too long that you get bored. So it's short and sharp, 7-minute talks, and then at the end we'll invite all the speakers up where you can ask questions and also kind of interact with obviously the speakers as such. So just a couple of shout outs. So, this wouldn't be possible. And if you are a partner and I call your name out, just kind of give us a shout so people know where you are. Thanks to our diamond sponsors, Salesloft. Clap him. We've got Yasmine and Chloe from Ouirhrane, who are a sales performance platform. Then Gong, Zoom Info, who we've got the wonderful Bruno and his team, I believe, are here. So Zoom Info, welcome. Mentioned Venatrix. The other recruitment business we've got in the room is Ouirhrane, run by Charles Tristram. So if you're further down your SDR career and you're looking for that next move, that next company, speak to Charles and his team. And then a round of applause. I'm just going to read the next ones out. We're not going to do individual shout-outs, but just a round of applause for Vidyard, Allego, Air Marketing, Cognizant, who are here, Sales Psyche, Get Accept, Jiminy, and Big Tin Can. So thanks very much for all the partners and sponsors. I need the info list. Okay, cool. Actually, do you want to mention anything just about what we do in the SDR function, Elaine?
I wanted to mention something about how important you guys are to companies now, because I'm sure you guys have obviously been on LinkedIn and all the chatter about market conditions changing. Buyers have got less confident. Maybe it's been more difficult for you guys over the past few weeks to book meetings. When I first started my career, it was 2008. I know you don't believe that, but it's true. And I actually started working on the 1st of September. And the reason why it's in my mind is obviously because next week is my 14th year anniversary in recruitment. 2 weeks later, Lehman Brothers crashed and we went into like a massive credit crunch and like a really difficult time and a really big recession. But it's what made me as a salesperson. So if you're out there right now making phone calls, having those challenges with buyers, it's going to sharpen your objection skills. And I just wanted to say you guys are the lifeblood for those companies right now, building those pipelines and helping find those deals. So that's why we love the SDR function. Yeah, let's hear from the speakers.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you very much. So this first speaker, like, I just want to reiterate the power of the network. You know, fundamentally, the people you're going to connect with tonight can stay in your professional network throughout your career. So, you know, kudos to you for making an effort for coming down tonight. It will make a difference in your career by you pitting yourself out and making connections. And our first speaker did just that. I'm not going to take her fire. She can share the story of how she ended up on stage at a sales confidence event. But I just want to introduce Olivia Green, who is a senior inbound SDR at Cladara. She's going to be talking about consistency, having the right attitude and mindset, talking about email outreach and the importance of events. Olivia is basically, like, she's been responsible for the early stages of development at her company, Cladara. So she's had to get right at the coalface in developing opportunities. And they're a reasonably sized business at about 50 employees, I believe. So they're in that kind of scale up phase. And she, you know, she's been promoted a couple of times already in her role. So she's someone to connect with. And I look forward to her opening up the speech. So give us a loud round of applause for Olivia Green.
Hi everyone, I'm Olivia. I'm a senior inbound SDR at Cladara. And for those of you who don't know, Cladara helps companies discover, purchase, manage, and cancel all your software in one place. So we help finance on one side through virtual cards and IT on the other with like features such as Engage, which shows companies whether software tools are being used or not. I've been at the company for roughly a year, and in that year, when I joined, there was roughly 20 people. Now we're at 50, as James mentioned. And it's a really exciting time. Since joining, we've become the first seed stage company to accept payments across the US, UK, and EU. So I had a pretty exciting journey, and selling the product's been super fun. So today I'm going to talk about consistency, focusing on mindset, email outreach, and events, as James mentioned as well. So I'd like to start with mindset because this was one of my first challenges that I had when entering into sales. I joined Cladara straight from university and really struggled with the concept of, you know, a dashboard and being like so highly seen. Every demo counted, particularly as we were such a small sales team at the time. There was only 3 SDRs, 1 AE, and our head of sales. So I really felt that pressure like week on week and seeing it on a dashboard compared to my colleagues, etc. But I quickly realized that once you know the steps that you need to succeed, you just need to keep repeating those steps, and it becomes an individual sport of consistency. So by that, you have a machine and you just keep feeding it, and then the results follow. So I soon stopped looking at the dashboard and like focusing if there was a bit of a lull in the month, or if I was overachieving, I'd stop focusing on that, and I'd just keep on putting in that input, and eventually the output and the booking meetings would follow. However, what are those steps that you can take to succeed? So at Cladara, which is quite unusual, we only outreach via written communication. So predominantly email, a bit of LinkedIn, the occasional GIF, and some vidyards. So I've actually never picked up the phone, which is a bit different to other companies. And essentially, what is important about an email is, first of all, that subject line. So my top tip for that is to keep it mysterious. You need to keep interest and get that prospect to open your email through keeping it short and precise. Usually for general sequences, I'll just use a 1-word subject line. And then for more personalized C-suite sequences, I'll look at specific company, perhaps use their growth or a role that they're hiring for, recent investment, or if there's a particularly fun LinkedIn profile, then I'll try and find a way that I can link that back to something about in their profile back to the product in the email. Then once in the email itself, there's 2 really important elements that I always follow, which is to stay precise and also empathetic. So for precision, keep it as short and sweet as possible. Decision makers are flooded with emails in their inbox every day, so it's really important to not overload them with information and unnecessary features that might not be relevant to their role. And again, this adds back to the mystery that I talked about earlier, which might lead them to click on your website and learn a bit more, or even take the step to book a call. Then I mentioned empathy, because obviously we're all SDRs, we want to book those meetings, you know, we've got targets, we like booking meetings, but it's really important to remember at the end of the day, decision makers are senior, high up people who 30 minutes of their time a day is really important and crucial to their, you know, schedule. So if they're actually taking time out of the day, you need to help them along the journey to show them why it's important to take that time. So to do this, there's 3 main things that I like to follow. I like to explain the problem first. And then once explaining the problem, finding a way that relates to them, I like to ask a rhetorical what-if question. And through that what-if question, kind of give them the imaginary scenario. What if we could save you 25% on software costs, or something along the lines of that? And then thirdly, I like to keep it visual so that they can understand the product in a short glimpse without actually having to read too much detail, because again, they don't have much time. Whether that resource be an image or a white paper or any kind of ebook that your marketing department has written, anything's useful. Following that, keeping empathy in your follow-ups is also important, because, you know, if you push for that demo, more likely than not, they're going to ask you to unsubscribe. So I like to follow a push-pull technique, which is essentially where once they reply to me, whether it's positive or negative, usually they're engaged enough to, you know, take their time to reply. So you should follow up answering their objection and also saying it might be easier to, you know, hop on a quick call. If they don't get back to me, then I like to pull them in back to Cladara with a bit more information that was more giving. And I don't ask for any kind of, you know, time or requirement that they have to sacrifice. And then again, consistency in your follow-ups. Keep going back, never stop, like 90 days, 180 days. You don't even want to know, just keep going. That's your pipeline, you've got to keep pushing it. And then finally, events. Obviously, empathy follows into events when you start speaking to people. You want to keep yourself, you know, open to conversations rather than just pitching them your product. And that leads me to talk about energy. So more likely or not, at events, you know, we met at SASTA EU in Barcelona. You're meeting hundreds of people a day, like they're pitching you their product and you're listening, but you're not really listening. What you're going to remember is the person and that interaction and that feeling that they gave you. So always keep super high energy. And for the story that James and I actually met, I was just running around the events hall, like trying to chat to people, like trying to talk and see, you know, who would be interested in software. I mean, it was a SaaS conference, so everyone's interested in software. But I was trying to see who would be interested in software. And I actually, at lunchtime, everyone didn't want to talk to me. And I just bounced up to James and I was like, he was eating his lunch. And I was like, how are you doing? What are you here for? You know, obviously we're talking about a bit about Cladara, a bit about sales confidence. And then that is what led me to speak here today, from that interaction being such a positive and fun one rather than just, will you buy this? So yeah, my 3 main takeaways is consistently put your input in and you'll get your output. With your email outreach, consistently be precise and empathetic. And when you're at those events, be consistently energetic and just bring that good energy. So thank you.
Woo! Thank you very much, Olivia. Some excellent guidance there. Very good. So next up, we're going to be hearing from Yasmine, who is a business development manager at Venatrix. So Yasmine moved into SaaS in early 2021 before joining Venatrix in the October of that year in her current role. She covers the Southern Europe region, speaking French, Italian, and Spanish. So Yasmine, you're going to be talking to us about the power of leveraging your network, how to make the switch to sales, and the importance of finding mentors in your career. Take it away.
Hello, everyone. I'm very, very happy to speak today at this conference, this event, sorry. I'm Yasmine Ouirhrane. I'm an associate seller at Venatrix. So Venatrix is a sales performance management company where we help enterprise and mid-market companies to automate the commissions, basically. So I joined Varicent, as was said, in October 2021, almost a year. And today I would like to discuss how to leverage your network in order to enter and grow your sales career. I will start with a personal experience because I actually come from a very different background before joining sales. So how can you leverage your skills to the benefit of working in a sales company? So for in my experience, I had worked in the past for international organizations and institutions, and basically I came from a total different environment. I had to deal with organizations, private, public spheres, and then I realized that those skills you can transfer them and use them in order to work also with private actors. So when I applied to jobs, I had to send tons of CVs before securing my first role. But once in there, what I would leverage in terms of my personal skills is the network that I had built, but also speaking different languages, having the ability to connect with people beyond a sales transaction and build these relationships in order to, in the future, leverage them for opportunities. And these, in terms of using your network within your career, I would say there is two elements that really helped me. One is networking outside of the company, so really going to events, and I have been doing in the past, also while working in other spheres. It would be international conferences, and all these people that I had connected to on LinkedIn or on social media, I would just leverage them at the right time, and eventually it got me very good opportunities in my role. And then the second part of networking was more of inside the company. How can I accelerate my learning of the product, but also of the potential targets and client targets by networking within my organization. So I started to have one-on-one meetings with my solution consultants at the company, but also to really understand the market that I was working in. So as was mentioned, I covered Southern Europe, which is quite a big market. It's different languages that you have to speak with clients in Italy or in Spain or in France, but also the Middle East and North Africa. So how can you find the right company? It was really the support that I created by working with my colleagues inside. And the third part is more about how can you, the network that you have built, how can you find the right mentors within the organization to help you also grow your career. So from my side, since day one, I would go with my, and meet my directors and ask them a simple question: how did you start? So they have 20, 30 years, 40 years experience. My goal was to understand what's their path, what's their career, and how can I learn from them in order to be successful in my role. Of course, a director that has prospected clients 30 years ago has done it in a very different way than now. Maybe they didn't have social media, they had to knock on doors and just try and find clients, but there is a lot that I could learn from them and then adapt it to my skills. And also these mentors that, you know, it's my directors, but I consider them as mentors. They became then champions for my career growth. So when it came to pitching a potential promotion or a way to do innovative ways to prospect with clients, they would be listening to me or to my colleagues just because of this relationship that I created. So in a nutshell, I would say, first of all, the importance of trusting your skills, trusting that no matter what's your background, there is transferable skills that you can use also in other roles to enter in sales. And then secondly, the importance to network within the organization, but also outside. And thirdly, finding a direct mentor that can champion you to become successful in your journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Some great tips there. One of the things to point out, just because you're an SDR and you're at the beginning of your career, don't underestimate the power of leveraging senior executives in your business and showing up and identifying, having conversations with them. You know, they will appreciate it. So especially a lot of us work in US companies that have operations over here, you know, network across the pond and have those conversations. Next one, I'm super excited. We've got John Allder and Lizzie Stamp. The first time ever we're doing a double act, so this is setting the tone for the future of sales confidence. They're going to be talking about 7 minutes in sales heaven. How lovely. So they're going to be covering breaking the kind of reactive approach throughout the sales process, thinking about the cadences and when they're important and when they work. And so just to give you an intro, John has been an SDR at Salesloft for about 8 months now. Prior to that, he was in recruitment as well as corporate foreign exchange skills, which fundamentally, I'm sure there's a lot of people here that have been through that transition of FX into sales, and you get used to banging the phones a lot. So, that set you up well. Lizzie has been an SDR and now moved into an AE. So one of the journey points that we want to highlight as new salespeople in the room as SDRs is that transition that I hope many of you are ambitious to make in the early part of your career. She actually started in marketing before moving into sales, so she's got a great background of understanding the landscape. So looking forward, can we have a round of applause for John Allder and Lizzie Stamp, 7 minutes in sales heaven.
Cool, here we go. Hi everyone, my name's John. As James said, I'm an SDR here at Salesloft.
Oh, hi everyone, Lizzie. Exactly as said, I'm an AE here at Salesloft. Used to be an SDR, and we're going to talk to you guys today all about being reactive across your sales process. It will make more sense as we go on.
Amazing. So we appreciate you've been sitting down for a while. So we actually want to start by asking everyone to stand up.
Thanks for standing. So we want you to sit down if you've ever sent a prospecting email and you've seen activity on that email. So by activity, I mean you've seen clicks, you've seen opens, perhaps even they're visiting your website through tracking, and you haven't sent an email within 5 minutes of seeing the activity.
Amazing. So of the 4 people still standing up in the room, sit down if you haven't given them a call within 5 minutes of seeing that activity.
Okay, cool. So of the people left standing, the 3 left, sit down if you haven't sent a GIF or a meme that same day of seeing the activity after doing one of the other steps.
Amazing. Everyone look at the guy standing up. He's going to the bar because he doesn't need the next 10 minutes.
There is one left. There's one person. So yeah, that kind of leads us on to our topic. It's all about sort of honing in on that sort of moment of intent, if you will, and using reactivity to convert the prospecting emails that you're booking into meetings, and then across the rest of the sales process to convert your funnel into actual revenue, essentially.
Amazing. So, as James said, we're the first double act, and we want to utilize this as much as we can. So we're actually going to kick off with a really short role play. Now, in this scenario, I am prospecting Lizzie. Lizzie is from a tier 1 account, and I know that she's the right person to speak to. So we're going to kick off my sales cycle by sending her a highly personalized email on day 1 of my cadence. In my case, I'm sending her a video.
Cool. So I am the tier 1 prospect, and I've received the video. And the email looks interesting, so I decided, okay, I'm going to give this a watch. Obviously, there's a little bit of interest there, but I don't reply to John. I just leave it. I'm probably thinking to myself, this isn't the right time.
So as an SDR, this is quite frustrating. I wish Lizzie replied, but she didn't. But I can see activity on her email. So we're going to ask you to put hands up this time rather than stand up. Hands up if you would see this activity on an email and send a standard written email in response.
Okay, hands up if you would maybe give them a call.
A few more. And finally, hands up if you would send a meme or a GIF. Love that. Cool. So at this point, we actually did some research at Salesloft. And we did it through A/B testing and what works for us and what works for our ICP. And we found that a meme was 30% more likely to get a response than the other two methods. Now, I'm kind of winging how I'm going to do this. And without a screen, I can't really do it too well. But I've got two memes in my hand that worked really well for us. The first one is the car swerving left towards book a meeting with John. The second one being a skeleton asking Lizzie to respond to my email. Now, I want to hear a cheer if you would send the skeleton. No one. So everyone's going to cheer for this one, right?
Cool, thanks guys. So also the reason we're talking about 5 minutes and why it's that quick is because research actually shows that when it comes to leads and trying to convert them, that if you are to contact them within 5 minutes, you have a 10 times higher chance of converting it than if it's 10 minutes or more. So just wanted to focus on that a little bit.
Now, to highlight again, memes work really well for our ICP and our buyer as heads of sales, but for your ICP, it might be a little bit different. So having a sales engagement tool that allows you to A/B test what works and what doesn't will allow you to see what is the most effective way of reacting for your ICP.
Exactly that. And yeah, just to highlight that we actually book 40% as an SDR team, 40% of our meetings just through being reactive. So just through like honing in on that moment and just trying to get them in that same time. So we're actually going to switch roles now. So for the purpose of the presentation, we're going to switch over and we're going to talk about it from a viewpoint of what would happen next. So he's booked that meeting. He has used that moment to get me onto a discovery call or even a demo. And I'm the AE that's sitting in on there. And I'm going to run with it, say the commercial call's gone amazing, say that we are now sending the final proposal of commercials. And he's my prospect. So he receives that on his end.
Cool. So to round this up, as I appreciate we only have 7 minutes, it's really important to A/B test what we spoke about today and to see what works for your ICP versus ours. We found that being reactive on emails rather than sticking to a cadence or a sequence was 40% more effective. And 43% of our meetings as an SDR team at Salesloft came from being reactive alone.
Yeah, and interestingly, what we found through A/B testing is actually memes is the best way to book and convert that into a meeting when you're prospecting. So 37% higher chance when you're using memes. And even more interestingly, if you were to do a double tap, so like we asked at the start, if you don't just send the meme or send the email, for example, and you don't hear back and then you give them a call, then it's even higher than that and it's around 40%. So definitely worth giving a go.
So for anyone that hasn't used memes before, I'm happy to share with you all the examples that have worked really well for me. And please do reach out to me on LinkedIn, where I'm super active, or Lizzie.
Yeah, and if you do have any questions, we're hoping you're filled with them, then we'll be doing the panel after. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that, John and Lizzie. That was amazing. Excellent audience participation there as well. So now I'm going to be introducing to you guys Rhys Pedrick. So Rhys moved to Incident.io from his previous role with GoCardless earlier this year. Coupled with his experience from his time at Perkbox, Rhys has got a lot of experience in working with early stage startups to draw on in his talk. He's going to be talking to us about why you should and shouldn't join an early stage startup due to the due diligence you need to do, and also thinking about some of the pros and cons. Take it away, Rhys.
Thank you. 7 years ago, I left my job in recruitment to join a startup. It was a VR hospitality booking software that was destined to disrupt the world of VR hospitality booking. I quickly found that the CEO had Adam Newman levels of persuasiveness, and all was not as it seemed. It turns out there was absolutely no money. I left 6 weeks later and never got paid. That was when I found out what pre-seed meant. So, as Elaine says, my name's Rhys. I'm an account executive here at Instant.io. I've been working in sales for 8 years, the last 5 of which have been SaaS sales. I've experienced growth from Series B up to Series G, and with that, I've noticed kind of all of the different levels of stages of growth that come with that. Right now, I joined Instant.io when they just raised their seed round, and I intend on staying until our CEO's had enough of my dad jokes. So the most common question I get since leaving GoCardless is why go from a really well-funded, popular, well-known fintech to a smaller company that's only just raised their first round? The answer is easy: fame and fortune. Obviously, I'm joking, but these aren't actually too far from the truth. Instead of fame, I wanted more input than just my number. The hamster wheel life really wasn't for me. I was really missing that cross-departmental impact and influence that I had on the overall strategy, and no percentage over my target was going to fill that gap. And although I was making more money than I ever had, I was really at a crossroads in my career financially. I realized that there's 2 ways of making big money in SaaS sales. You can go down the enterprise route and do multi-million-dollar transformation programs, or you can join an early-stage startup. Now, both of these are risky in their own right, but there are things that you can do to minimize that risk. It's very likely that you have or will be enticed into the world of angel investing. So a few years ago, I got my hands on a book called Angel by Jason Calacanis. He was an early Uber investor, and he's invested in a lot of very well-known startups. The book mostly covers the things that you should be looking out for when investing in a company. Now, in my eyes, I think that joining an early-stage company is very much like investing in it. Instead of investing money, you're investing your time, which arguably is more important. So how do you make sure that you're backing the right horse? Now, this is a whole topic in itself. I'd love to connect with anyone that wants to talk about it. I'm very passionate about that kind of stuff. But today, I'm going to be focusing on why you should and shouldn't join an early-stage startup. So my colleague, Pierre, he really likes to work in the rules of 3. I'm really competitive and always need to outdo him, so here's 4 reasons why you should and shouldn't join an early-stage startup. So number 1, things change all the time. The company might not have found product-market fit. It might not be clear who your ideal customer is, or if the product is even needed by them. Less people means less resources, so there's going to be a wider variety of work. You're going to be asked to work on projects that might not contribute to your number. This can be really tough, particularly if you're not, if you've got a month where you're not hitting your target. But on the other hand, it can be much more exciting. If something doesn't work, there's typically a very small feedback loop. If you want to make a change, you're on the front line talking to customers and getting that feedback to your product team. If you blink, you'll miss it. It's very likely that you'll be able to look back on a month and notice many, many big things that have happened. Suddenly, you'll be meeting new starters, and they'll be impressed that you've been in the company for 6 months. You're already part of the furniture. Now, secondly, it's likely that you're going to report to a founder or a CXO. Chances are they might not have domain knowledge in what you're doing, so they might be a technical founder, an engineer, for example, and not have the sales experience. They're going to have a lot more on their plate than just you to think about. There's a whole company there to run, and your priorities might not match up with their priorities. However, you're going to get exposure to things that you wouldn't otherwise have. You might sit next to the CEO and get visibility over things that you wouldn't in a larger organization. And they're going to have a great network for you to tap into. You're going to meet investors and other founders that it's very likely your CEO or whoever you report to might be able to make warm intros into. Well, thirdly, there's going to be no process. You'll probably spend the first few months in Gmail and Google Sheets, and if you don't keep these tidy, then things are going to get messy very quickly. A little plug-in for Salesloft there. Nobody knows what is right, and the things that are obvious to you might not be obvious to others. It actually takes a bit of a mind shift to be able to know when to speak up, and also how. It takes practice. But the great thing is you're going to get to shape the process and have the flexibility to try new things. This is your license to get creative. Nobody's going to expect perfection, and the small things are going to have massive impacts down the line. A really cool thing is that you actually get to be on the buying side of tools as well, so you get to be on the other side of that discovery call. This is going to help shape your process, and also it's just going to be really fun to kind of pick holes in what they're doing, but also to pick up new things as well. And finally, the future is unclear. You're going to have 101 questions as to the future of the business. It's very unlikely that anyone's going to know the answer. There's going to be no promotion path. There's no framework in place to say that if you hit X% over your target, that you'll get a promotion to a closing role or a manager role. But on the other hand, there's much more likely to be a meritocratic system. The more you put in, the more you're going to get out. One of the most common reasons I hear for people joining early stage startups is the fact that you could potentially get an accelerated career growth. With that comes a massive learning curve, but it means you're going to learn a lot more in a shorter amount of time and therefore be eligible for that promotion. And if everything goes well, there could be a big win at the end. If you find the right company and stay long enough to vest your options, it could genuinely land you a life-changing amount of money. So joining an early stage startup isn't for everyone. If you back the right horse, you can find yourself on an accelerated career path that gives you back multiples of what you put in. And some of you are going to be put off by what I've said. It sounds mad, and it is. For the others, we're hiring, so feel free to come and find me for a chat or drop me a line on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhys. So we're up to our final speaker, and then we're going to have a short panel where you guys can ask questions. And just as an FYI, do put your hand up to ask questions. You're here to learn. So our final speaker is Bruno, who is the Global Sales Development Manager at ZoomInfo. Bruno first ventured into sales 5 years ago as an SDR at Leighton and hasn't looked back. I hope. After spending 3 years progressing, Bruno made the move into his current role with ZoomInfo in January, and they've been on an incredible hiring and growth spree in the last kind of 6-7 months. ZoomInfo is a global leader in go-to-market intelligence solutions with a platform that helps you access data and hit your numbers. So Bruno's going to be talking about moving the needle, the shift from good to great as an SDR, and covering various aspects of that process. So round of applause to our final speaker, Bruno.
Good evening. Thanks for having me, Elaine and James. It's a great pleasure to be here. I was going to do a long intro, but James kind of did it for me there. My name's Bruno. I am the Global Outbound Sales Development Manager. Been here since January. It's been a hell of a ride. I was the first SDR hire at the company in January, and since then we've already grown to over 75 employees in about 7 months. So it's been a fast growth startup feel. I can hear some boos over there from Cognizant. So we've obviously had our battles with you guys. It's great to be here together at the same event to share some of our ideas. My topic this evening is moving the needle, the shift from good to great as an SDR, and I've had the pleasure of working with kind of 20, 25 or so SDRs over the last 6 months who've taught me a lot about the role, the challenges that they go through, but also, I think more importantly for me, the skills that they've learned along the way to get them better every single day. One in particular that stands out, and I'm going to tell a bit of a story about this one. The piece of advice is be curious. And although that's very broad, there is one person, she's in the room somewhere, her name's Tiana, she's the crazy Croatian lady, so say hello to her afterwards. Tiana was in the first cohort of hires that we had back in February in the UK, and she came as someone who was a bit of a nervous wreck, if I'm honest. She was petrified of cold calling, and obviously working at Zoom Info and having mobile numbers. Funnily enough, we do a lot of cold calling. And this was a real challenge for her. And I remember sitting down and speaking to her after 2 weeks or so of her onboarding, and she said to me, Bruno, I can't do this anymore. It's too much. The rejection, imposter syndrome was kicking in, and I'm sure there's a lot of you people sitting here today that have had that feeling before. And I said to Tiana, right, we're going to do a little game here. I want you to go and speak, and James mentioned this earlier, I want you to go and speak to as many people as you possibly can about the SDR role, about the challenges they faced, but go a step further and talk about what problems we solve as a company that differs from what our SDRs think. So 2 days later, Tiana came back to me, and normally when I ask this question, I say, how many people did you speak to? The answer is normally about 5 or 10 people on average, and it's normally 2 other SDRs, another SDR manager, an account executive, and maybe a senior executive in the company. When I asked Tiana 2 days later how many people she'd spoken to, she said 42. And I said, as many as 42? She said, yep, 42. And I said, who did you speak to? And James brought this up actually in a conversation he had with our team yesterday. Tiana went out of her way to go and speak to product, because they're at the forefront of what we're doing. They know what our customers are struggling with. They know what challenges our product solves. And all of a sudden, Tiana leapfrogged ahead of all of the other SDRs who were only speaking to SDRs at the company. So just by Tiana's own pure curiosity, she was able to go and learn so much more in such a short space of time by speaking to marketing, to account executives. She went a step further and went on LinkedIn, probably connected with people like James and other people who have been in the position that we have to get different viewpoints. We then got together, we distilled all of these points into bullet points, 42 bits of information, and the key thing now was to go and implement that. And so the next month, having been a mid to low performer in her first month, she leapfrogged people that had been in the role for over a year and became our top performing SDR in the space of a month, just purely from being curious about the problems we solved and who we were working with. So that was just a story about being curious. But the fact that we're all here now, the fact that James has organised this event, we are all here being curious. No one's told us to come in. We have to be here. We're here being curious, wanting to learn more about how to get better at the job. And I think that's a testament to why I think that's one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever been given, and certainly the one that I always try and give to people new to the role. The second thing that I wanted to speak about, and this is relevant to some of the other speeches, so it seems to have dovetailed quite nicely, but I promise I didn't plan that, is talking more about what it takes to be a good SDR, aside from just having the gift of the gab. When we were younger, our mums probably told us we're going to be good at sales because we got good chat. That is not the case anymore, and I think we all know that. The amount of skills that you need to be good at this job, you have to be able to master every channel. It's not just about being good on the phone. You need to be tech savvy. You need to be innovative. You need to be disciplined. You need to be consistent. And all of these things are very coachable, but they're also very hard to do. And I think one of the big ones that I want to focus on, which, again, some of you guys who are account executives now or have been top performers in the SDR role will know that you have to be self-analytical and you have to be able to be self-reflective on a lot of the work that you do. So we're in a very lucky position at Zoom Info. We have a conversation intelligence tool called Chorus. Obviously, there are other vendors available. But being able to have a conversation intelligence tool which allows you to self-reflect on your own calls, your own work, is so, so important. Most of the time as SDRs, we get told, I'll go and listen to John's calls or go and listen to Ellie's calls because they're the best. And that's great. But one of the ways you're going to get better even quicker is by listening to your own calls and bringing those to your one-to-ones with your managers. And the best SDRs that I've worked with are the people that come to me every one-to-one with a call, with notes. This is what I think I should have done better. What do you think? So being able to be self-analytical and self-reflective is another part of how I've seen certain SDRs go from good to great. So those are my two main tips. I'm not sure how I've done for time there, but hopefully I'm bang on the money. I did practice it in the shower this morning, and I got to about halfway in 7 minutes, so hopefully I've nailed it there. But if you guys have got any questions for me, obviously, like we said, we've got the panel now, but appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay. Great job, Bruno. Great way to end the talks. A phenomenal job, from the speakers. It's not easy to get up here and share your thoughts. So can I just invite the speakers up, and we're going to open up for questions. I'm just going to kick off, break the ice a little bit with a question. I was just curious, as we all know in this job, we're faced with tons of rejection, and we're getting rejected and no's day in, day out. I was just wondering, have any of you got any good stories from any major rejections that you've had recently or that you're willing to share?
Yeah, so I wish I could say it was at Salesloft, but it wasn't. It was my first role in FX. Day 2 of being live, I made a cold call to a CEO who straight away turned around and said, "You're new to this role, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah." And he asked me to call him back in 6 months when I've learned how to do my job. And I put a note in my diary to call him back 6 months to the day. And I called him back, opened the client, and he was my biggest client within 2 weeks of opening with me. So yeah, never give up on it.
You want me to? Yeah, slightly different, not quite as funny as yours. Sorry. There's a couple of people in my team. So one of the big things we do at Zoom Info is multi-threading accounts. So the ability to call multiple decision makers within one company and not taking no for an answer. And there's a girl in my team, she's in the US. She was calling the Royal Mail Group. I'm sure most of us know who they are. She'd spoken to, I think, 14 or 15 different decision makers, had got 14 dead ends, and the 15th person she called at the account, she booked a meeting with, and they closed for a multi-million-dollar deal as well. So I think that's just a piece of advice for multi-threading and being able, don't take no for an answer for that one account unless your product is very specific to one decision maker.
So let's kick this off. Who's going to ask the first question? Raise your hand. Who's got a question? Yep.
Hey guys, I'm Roberto. Like I said, I only joined the BDR 9 days ago, so I haven't actually made a call or sent an email yet. I was wondering, what's the kind of percentage you allocate your time to calls, emails, or LinkedIn? Is it like a mixture, or is it alternative to what's working for you, or what are your thoughts?
Welcome to the world of sales.
Hey Roberto, welcome. So I think it's kind of dependent on your style and what you like doing. Personally, the way I would approach it was to do my personalized emails first thing, because that's when I had the most sort of energy to really do the research and things. I would put call blocks in my calendar. If you have a way to sort of understand the best times to call, then I try and associate it with that. Maybe if you're calling the US, obviously do it later in the day, not to wake anyone up. And then LinkedIn would sort of fall in between. Like I wouldn't set a time aside, but it would go, I'd always have my LinkedIn open and just see as and when it came. But that's my personal approach. Don't know if anyone else has it. Pass it along.
What I would say is also be mindful on which territory you're covering, because I know that you can call French people for a long time, but it's not within the culture to just receive cold calls compared to the US or the UK. So that's something that I learned that I had to adapt on my outreach process. So I would first, write emails, contact them on LinkedIn, and then eventually follow up with calls. But really try to understand, because in terms of rejection, I can tell you I'm like I got a lot of rejection of how do you dare calling me, but you just become used to it and you persist and you politely, okay, sorry, I will write you an email, no problem, or you just try and push back. Depends on the situation, but very important to understand who you have in front, whether it is a C-level person or a person more like less senior, understanding whether you should, as she said, have a block, calls, emails, and LinkedIn every day. I would split different parts for those activities.
Thanks for sharing. I would just add to that, one thing I've noticed in this kind of new breed of salespeople, there's a lot of tools that you're given in the first weeks and months, and it can be very distracting. Like when you are on the phone, like be on the phone and hit those numbers and hit those metrics. Like it's tedious, but it is a numbers game. And rather than doing it like in an hour block, break it down into 15 minutes and seeing how much you can do in those 15-minute blocks. Honestly, it would change the game for you. Next question. Come on, your SDRs. Yes, sir, you with a cap.
Hello, nice to meet you guys. What would you say is the hardest objection you guys have to ever deal with as an SDR, and how did you overcome it?
Hardest objection you've dealt with?
Yeah, it's really trivial, but I think the hardest objection to overcome is a genuine objection. And I put up a LinkedIn post about it. But you can kind of tell when someone's rattling off a script that they've learned throughout receiving cold calls. We're not interested. I'm busy. I'm about to go into a meeting. Compared to a genuine objection, whereby we're with a competitor. Our renewal's up for 2 months. Can you call me in 2 months? And it's distinguishing between what a real objection is and what a fake objection is, and then reacting accordingly. But to answer your question, the hardest objection, I think, to overcome is a genuine one, because you can't overcome it. It's a genuine objection that you have to work around.
Done. Yeah, chap at the back, stand up. What's your response when they say they're not interested?
Thanks for getting back to me. I really appreciate it. It would be great to know why you're not interested. We're a startup, so feedback is always really useful. Thank you.
There you go. Anybody else?
I feel like you can kind of do whatever you want to do. You could do a funny meme of someone being like, why are you saying this? You can do like so many different things. I think the important part is if they do say they're not interested, to not just like stop there. Like even if a not interest for me was never like a no, that was like a not right now. So I would always nurture them. I'd always send them relevant content, something that's interesting to them, so that when I did try them again in my like proper prospecting, they always knew who I was, and maybe they were more interested now because I'd put more time into them, if that makes sense.
Something I would add to that, like we're all taught, from a young age that no means no, from a young age. And there are times when no means no, by the way. But from a sales context, and being on the phone, in my opinion, like no doesn't mean no. It means not now. And so I work to the rule of 3 no's. So immediately the fact is, how hard is it, everybody, to get someone on the phone these days? It's hard. So when you get another human being on the phone, you need to take that opportunity, and you can't just react to the first, I'm not interested. Also, just because words come out of someone's mouth doesn't mean that's what they mean. They're just reacting to the fact that you've called them and they've had another call like that before. So for me, if someone's not interested, just acknowledge it. I expected you were going to say that. But what I wanted to ask you is this. I heard you, but can I ask you just this one more question? The more effective you get at acknowledging and then actually following up, the more time you're going to get someone on the phone. And all you're doing is breaking the ice. And the better you get at holding the conversation, like it sounds crazy, but the longer you keep someone on the phone for, the more skilled you're going to get. You're going to get practice. And unfortunately, many of you at the moment are not getting enough time on the phone. and you're not having long conversations, especially in August. So, you know, play with the rejection and see how far you can push it without being, you know, kind of obscene and rude. But there you go. Next question. Who's got a question? Oh, they're all coming. Yes. What would you like to say?
So mine's for Rhys. So obviously working at startups, obviously, you know, there's a lot of progression, like fast progression, especially at a startup. What would be like some of your advice for moving up more efficiently and stuff like that? Because I know sometimes in a startup, obviously there's fast progression, but you know, there's some people that will be pushed up when they're not ready or something like that. Like, what is your advice for moving up in the most efficient and smart way?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think it can be very easy to want to be promoted as quickly as possible and to get to like director level, VP level, manager, whatever. If you're going to do that, then make sure that you've got some kind of mentorship or someone outside of the business to coach you through that. Back when I was in Perkbox, I joined as the first SDR. By the time I left, I was a manager. I didn't have any external mentorship, and I just did everything that my boss told me to do. It was like, we've got 20 headcount, just fill it. And I hired loads of people, but they were all wrong for the role because it was like the most important thing was bums on seats. And had I had the mentorship that I have now, I would have been able to double check what I should be doing and like how I should be playing that. So yeah, definitely like not if that's what you want to do, then great, go for it. I think ambition is fantastic, and everyone should like be as ambitious as possible. Your salespeople, you want to get to the top of like whatever it is you're going after. And I think that doesn't even apply just again for management, right? I think like everyone in here should just go away and just try and find a mentor somewhere else, because it will help you get better eyes from like a different point of view.
Cool. Next question. This chap here.
I want to ask, like, hi, my name is Gregory. I want to ask, like, how do you be GDPR compliant in the EMEA region and still excel on outbound prospecting? I know we have like really good tools here in the house, like Zoom Info, Cognizant, but they give data insights on a fingertips. But how to be GDPR compliant and still excel at outbound?
Anybody want to respond to that?
It probably should be me, shouldn't it? It's a great question. GDPR compliance is a pretty shady subject in you know, a lot of organizations. I think, you know, I can speak from Zoom Info, I know Cognizant, people like Lucia. There's a lot of companies out there that claim to be GDPR compliant. It's, funnily enough, one of the biggest training points that we have as an organization. Every company does it differently. Zoom Info, for example, I mean, I can tell you about us. We work off an opt-out scheme. So every single person in our database, it could be any of you guys here, will have received an email telling you that you are in the database, and it has been found in a GDPR compliant way. One of the main ways that's done, if people are interested, is through our contributory network. So anyone who signs up for a community edition, so the free edition of Zoom Info, you're not paying for any licenses. In response, we say, hey, we can give you 5 credits a month. Can we scan your email signatures for contact data? And that is GDPR compliant because it's a business card. It's basically an online business card. It's an email business card. So that is GDPR compliant, and it has been signed off. I know Cognizant do something pretty similar with their data. It's then down to the company who then uses that data to be GDPR compliant themselves. So the data we have on our platform is GDPR compliant. But if that person then asks to be removed from your database as a company, you must then make sure you do the due diligence to take them off, because that's when it goes down to you. So there's a lot of data. GDPR compliance is a big thing. Make sure you follow your own company's regulations. But the data you get from companies like Cognizant, like Zoom Info, and all the other ones, there's no issue there.
Very kind. Next question. Yeah, with the red t-shirt.
Hi everyone, my name is Brad, one of the founders of Allder. We're looking to triple our sales team between now and the end of the year. So this is a question for those on the panel involved in this interview. What's the number one quality you look for in a new SDR, and how do you test for it?
Yeah, I think I can answer that question in two ways. I could screw back my sales recruitment head on and say that coachability and transferable skills are two of the biggest things that I would look for when hiring. But from an SDR point of view now, some of the most successful SDRs at Salesloft have come from without SaaS sales experience. So I think being open to transferable skills and coachability for the SDR role are two really big things that I'd look for.
Sorry, I'm hijacking this. There's one more question which we ask, which I really like, and we're kind of a startup in the UK. Obviously, we've got 3,500 in the US, but we're still doing that startup phase in the UK. And one of the best questions we ask potential SDRs, which I think always gets the most interesting responses, is can you tell me about a time when you inspired change in a previous role, which led to a successful, result? So looking for people who maybe weren't a decision maker, they were in a just an individual contributory role, but were able to inspire change in something, and that always seems to bring out some really interesting answers.
Another question just to add to that I like is asking the individual when they've experienced a setback in their life and how they've overcome it. What I've seen from some of the most successful salespeople and sales leaders, often they've got a chip on their shoulder, and that's driven from something that's happened in their life that drives them. So if you can dig deep and understand and uncover that, you should unlock some potential. Great question. We're going to have two more questions. Yeah, chap, just here. Yeah?
Well, two questions.
You got two more questions.
Going to Pedrick, what would be the biggest challenge when operating in different jurisdictions? And I know you guys are everywhere now, so who do we contact to, well, we are looking for an SDR role.
If you're looking for an SDR role in the company, Christina and Brad are our founders, so they're right here tonight. And really, when outreaching, as I mentioned in my talk earlier, we're 100% email, so the only thing we change is the time that we send our emails. And we're hiring, we're starting hiring a sales team in the US starting in September/October, so then time zones will change, etc.
Exciting. Yeah, last question. Yep. Oh, no, not you, sorry. The other one. Email me.
Cold calling's been a pretty fundamental of SDR work for a long time. Everyone coming into the industry will see things like cold calling dead, lots of people challenging whether there's still a place for it, even on how clear people don't do cold calling tools about their SDR work. I mean, Salesloft is pretty focused on video and email content and being reactive over making lots of cold calls. What you guys see as the future of cold calling, is it still going to have a place in every SDR function, or will it become a secondary action compared to?
I'd say there are peaks and troughs in sales as everything happens, and as more people cold call, email will become easier to go through the white noise, and then as more people video, then it will become harder to get through via video, and then cold calls will come back. So it's just tapping in to that momentum at that time, what's new and hot and working, and what's being overdone, and whatever's being overdone, move away from that a bit and focus on what's new.
I actually think now is a very good time to be cold calling because people think it's become a bit more dead. So I would 100% say always multi-channel, always all three. I'm sorry to go against it. But I think cold calling is a very good way to break through the noise, and a good way to find numbers is on out of offices. So make sure you're getting them from there if you're not.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with what Lizzie said, but a really quick story from one of the SDRs at Salesloft that they told me yesterday. They spoke to a VP of sales, ended up booking a demo with them, but he turned around and said that yesterday alone, he had 250 sales emails, but only one cold call, and the cold call was the one he booked. I think it's all about being different, and like Olivia said, it's standing out with what's fashionable at the time, and at the moment, everyone's sending emails. So anything you can do to be different, whether that be a cold call, a video, a meme, whatever it might be, I think is gonna land.
Great. Thank you very much for your attention. Can we have a round of applause to our speakers, please? Can we have a round of applause to Elaine, our co-host, please? And also, can we just thank Incident.io for hosting us and everybody that's been involved in putting the event together, the camera crew, the writers, the social media team. It does take a kind of a small army to put an event like this, but really appreciate all your efforts. So one more round of applause. And then the final thing I just want to mention before we spend some time having some more drinks is, make sure you make connections here and connect with people. Like I said, they're going to stay with you throughout your career. Keep an eye out for sales confidence events. There'll be more later on in the year and our content. And also, just a quick raise of hands. How many of you are aspiring to be an AE in the room? Put your hand up. Okay, cool. And how many of you are aspiring to earn over 6 figures a year, 100K a year? Nice. It's good when you get there. Just to point out that Sales Confidence has launched a new membership now, which is basically an accelerator for SDRs that are striving to earn 6 figures. So I'll drop you an email about it. But if you want to learn more about accessing mentorship, coaching, and development outside your business, come and have a chat with me. But that's it. That's a wrap. Thank you very much. Enjoy your drinks. Cheers.